Absolutely nothing went wrong. Everything went according to plan. I couldn't have been more pleased.
It's not one thing, it's another.
But before we get into building this project, let me introduce to you Millie Molly Maine Coon.
She's only 4 months old, but already thinks she owns the place. She is super cute and will grow to be quite larger than your typical house cat. Maine Coons are known for their unique, even dog-like personalities at times, will walk on a leash, and did I mention they like water? Millie is a pure bundle of joy, absolutely loves her little spring toys that she plays with all the time, and the most uniquely bizarre trait about Millie is she has 30 toes. It's called polydactylism. So basically, my cat has thumbs. To welcome her into the family, I'm going to spend way too much money on building something a bit ridiculous and hopefully will be a nice addition to our home.
Today, we're building a project within a project. There's going to be some angles and some precision and some nice design. I hope you enjoy it. Come along with me. But before I begin the actual build, I kind of want to build a prototype. I want to practice some angles, make sure I like it, like the idea that I have. I need to build basically a hexagon that will let a very large house cat sleep. Let's get the prototype worked up and we'll go from there. There's going to be a lot more to the final product than just this, but I wanted to do this exercise because I haven't worked with angles a lot. And I wanted to know how my miters were going to turn out. Now, if you can see that, these miters came out really well. I put it right at 30 degrees or 60 degrees, depending on how you look at it. But anyways, the miters came out amazing. I also wanted to see what it would be like to cut this off with the jointer and this side with the bandsaw to see what cut I liked better. I liked the bandsaw better because the jointer kind of did some tear out on the end on this side. Of course, I covered it up with this piece. Oh no, it was this side. Never mind. So yeah, I got some tear out right here. The bandsaw is going to be a lot better option for that. Overall, I was really happy with the way it came out, but now this gives me enough confidence to move forward and do what I really want to do. So let's get that going.
I was able to pick up several walnut planks, but none of them were wide enough for the sides of the hexagon. Each side I planned on being 9¼ inches in width, which I know it's kind of an odd measurement to settle on, but this cat bed is for a very large Maine Coon cat. And this bed I'm making was designed for a much larger cat condo. So its size is also designed to fit in the condo. So I made a bunch of panels and then I cut them to size. I think we can all agree walnut is a safe bet for any project to look really nice, but I didn't want just walnut for this entire project. So that's where maple comes to the rescue. A hexagon is 6 sides, so 2 of them will have a maple walnut mix just to shake things up a bit.
I have these walnut strips which are perfect for this application. This is scrap wood from a different project and I love using scraps for anything. So I'm asking myself this question: should I cut this up, laminate these pieces and then mill it, or mill this, then laminate it? I think I'm just gonna cut them up, laminate it, and then mill it. I'm sure it'll be fine either way though. I have this one little spot right here that I thought would be planed out, but hasn't. And it's a little bit of tear out from the original piece. I have this black diamond pigment powder, mahogany color, that Total Bolt sent me a long time ago that I'm gonna use with some 2-part quick setting epoxy, and just to fill that in and sand it out. Now, next, I need to cut all of these to the appropriate size, plane them all to the exact same thickness. I'm gonna get 2 panels out of this piece, 2 panels out of this piece, plus these 2 makes 6 panels, which makes a hexagon. I need to cut all the bevels on all these, and for these pieces, we're gonna create some lookout points for our kitty cat, which I think she's gonna really like. So little time, so much to do. If Millie is gonna enjoy spending time in this hexagon, she's going to want airflow. I created this perfect template, the size of this board. I'm gonna use this to create these, I don't know what shape this is, oval maybe, but I know my measurements. I'm gonna use this 2-inch Forstner bit to create holes at the top and bottoms of each of these, and then use this as a template as I go along and drill out and cut out those cylindrical figures. I don't even know what shape this is called, but I gotta get this template made. I found the center and made little marks to make sure that the spacing was all even. So I got 2.5 inches here, 2.5 inches here, and 1.5 inch spacing between each one. Now all I have to do is trace out where I'm gonna cut. And I have this, I line up with this cut over here, this mark over here, so that I know exactly where to go on this side. Perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with equal spacing.
Although I'm using this amazing compression router bit for templating, I quickly remembered that I should remove as much of the material with my drill and jigsaw before taking it to the router table for templating. My thought process was spot on, but my execution was far from it, because what you are about to see is a major mishap in
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, if you guys are into woodworking mistakes, have I got one for you. So, lesson learned, do not try to readjust your piece when the bit is turning. So, this is what it did to the underside. It destroyed it, especially in this area. This piece right here is splinter, holding on for dear life. Now, the good news is, I was planning on using this side as the inside, so you'll never see it unless you're looking inside. Once I do this complete job here, a lot of it will be fixed, but it'll still be imperfect. I'm gonna try to figure something out for this, maybe some filler or epoxy or something like that. It's not the end of the world, but I did notice, and it might just be me, I may just be getting inside my head here, but it seems like my router, as it spins, sounds louder since this happened.
After reviewing the footage, I definitely noticed a huge difference in the sound when using this large bit. Check out this sound before the mishap. And now check it out after. I even used a smaller 1/4 inch bit just to try to see if everything was fine, and it was great. There was no obnoxiously loud sound. It only happens when I use this 1/2 inch large bit. Well, you win some and you lose some. Just learn from my mistakes, and we'll call this a learning moment for us all. And speaking of learning moments, I wish I had made this template with the 2 elongated shapes the size of the entire face with all 7 cutouts. It would have been a lot faster if I didn't have to keep reapplying tape every time I had to move the template.
Well, these 2 pieces came out amazing, except for this massive gouge that is honestly not bothering me as much as it should, because I know that it's going to be on the inside of the hexagon and no one's going to ever see it. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put tape right here. I'm going to fill it with 5-minute epoxy, let it harden, round over all the edges, and accept my fate for what it is. Question is, should I use a color dye or not? I don't know. I gotta say, I am quite pleased with the outcome. It is shape-wise, perfect. Color-wise, I'm fine with it. Now I can move on.
So, as I mentioned before, I rounded over all the edges, just so it's a little more cozy for Millie Molly. I also didn't want to mix up the outside faces from the inside faces, so I marked all of them with a big O over outside. That way I wouldn't cut the 60-degree bevel on the less desirable faces, but before I glued up the hexagon, I decided to sand the inside faces. I didn't want to compromise the outside miters, so I will sand the outside faces later. Of course, later, I had to go back and do some touch-up sanding to the inside, but it was a lot easier since I had done most of it prior to the glue-up.
All right, totally nervous right now. It's time to glue this up. I have my tape in place. I have my underlayment here, so there's nothing's gonna get on my workbench. I got a clamp brace piece here that I can clamp the top. I have 4 straps. I have another piece that I can put over here, but I honestly don't think I need it. So, with that said, it's time to glue it up.
I did a dry fit prior to recording that last clip, and what I learned was, for some reason I couldn't get all of the miters to perfectly touch, unlike the prototype. Now that is understandable since this is a much larger unit which creates more room for error. The good news is all of the outside miters touched seamlessly, but just some of the inside miters did not. But they weren't by much. Honestly, I think with allowing for glue to fill any gaps, which were honestly quite small, I'm confident any sort of structural integrity failure is simply not a factor, especially since it's just a cat that will be using it, yes, a large one, and might only stand on it once in a while.
That is pretty freaking sweet. I got it. There's a little glue to clean up. Got some extra glue on my shirt that I had to wipe away, but this is pretty awesome. I took off all the tape and scraped away some of the dried glue off camera just because it was like 10 o'clock at night and I was semi-nude, just got out of the shower. So timing is of the essence when it comes to removing all that dried glue. But I must say, looking at it, it's a lot bigger than I had in my brain. But this is gonna be a big cat and this is gonna be a big structure. This is pretty much all of my cutoffs of walnut. And this thing needs a front and a back. The plan is to take all these pieces and create a panel. That's a lot of planing and jointing, but it'll be a bit of a hodgepodge. I think it's gonna look cool. I have no problem with this. Let's do this.
First, I had to sift through all those scraps and pull out the pieces that were a little too thin. Of course, there was a bunch of extra milling to get them all the same thickness and completely square, but I won't make you watch all of that. I found 4 planks that were actually big enough for the front panel, so it came out fairly traditional looking. But the back panel definitely didn't disappoint in the patchy sort of way that I think ultimately ended up looking really cool. This ended up being like putting a puzzle together. I sort of just mixed and matched them until it was big enough for my measurements. You know, wide enough and long enough to cut the final shape out of. And had all of the joining edges marked with a matching letter so I could take it apart and back together again without getting them mixed up. Then I panel glued them up in small sections until I could then glue up the small sections into one large, funny shaped sort of panel. The mixy-matchy panel was intended for the back entry and needed a round hole for Millie Molly to climb into. So this hole had to be big enough to be welcoming, but it didn't have to be any particular exact size. The front panel was more of the same, but with a twist. Have you ever been at one of those play places for kids at a fast food restaurant and they have that bubble window to look through? Well, I had to cut an exact size to fit this little bubble window for Millie Molly to look through so she could keep an eye out while she catnaps. I thought it would be a cool addition to what will ultimately be a cat condo. The full build is coming out soon, so make sure you come back to see that video.
The back piece is gonna sit like this, but I want it magnetized on there so I can easily remove it. So if I need to clean out the inside or make adjustments, I can. I have these super strong N52 magnets that I got from KM Tools. If I put one on each of these, that'll be 6 total, and that would be super, super strong. And I don't know if it's gonna be hard to remove the piece because I'm gonna try to get it flush. I'm gonna start with just putting 2, top and bottom, and see how that works out. Kind of feel for how strong it is, and then I'll add more if I need to. So I just realized that 2 of these is not gonna work because when I put this down, it's gonna rock. So I need to have at least 4 dowel pins, so I'm gonna need at least 4 magnets.
I think this is the point in the build that I'm really starting to feel like something's coming together here. I mean, I got some dowel centering pins helping me find where to drill the opposite magnets. I'm drilling and epoxying and hammering. I really think I got something here.
That works pretty good. I mean, that's pretty strong. And now I'm gonna use double-sided tape to fully secure this so that I can trim, flush, route the edges so it's all nice looking, because I don't have this overhang and I want this to fit perfectly.
But before I flush trim the back to size, I have to address the front, which, to be honest, didn't go so well.
I've already drilled these holes with the plan of putting in dowels and gluing this on. But I'll be honest with you, I've quite fallen in love with the magnet idea. On the other hand, I got these ugly holes. When the lid is on there, no one's gonna see it. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna fill these with dowels, glue them in, flush cut them, leave them be, re-drill holes for about 4 magnets, and do the same thing for the front as I did the back. Now I'm gonna pretend like I'm doing this for the first time. Oh no, look. It's totally off. Something went wrong. Like, look at this. All this right here. Well, what's happening is these 2 magnets are good, but these 2 magnets I somehow flipped, even though I quadruple checked. And what's happening is that the magnets are opposite polars, so these magnets are pushing away, and this thing is that. So, my idea, I've marked these. My idea is to use a plug cutter and bore these out, try to remove the epoxy, somehow fill the hole again, re-drill, and put those back in.
Oh, it's not one thing, it's another.
Usually, I prefer to take the wood to the tool rather than the tool to the wood. But since this piece is a little too big, I decided to just put it on the floor and flush trim it. This looks simple on video, but in real life, this actually feels extremely dangerous. Notice how I keep the piece in between me and the router. If the router skips off this piece for any reason, then the bit is less likely to hit me or my leg.
I'm using mineral spirits. This is gonna clean it up right before I put the Rubio Monocoat finish on it, which is gonna make this look amazing. And I have 3 pieces to do it. Also, the lid fits perfectly now, so I'm very pleased that I got through that. Anyways, I gotta clean this up. While I wait for those mineral spirits to dry, I'm gonna work on the foam bed first before I do the Rubio Monocoat finish. I need to upholster this, and I've never done this before, and I need to cut foam, and I wanna cut foam at an angle. This angle. The problem is I tried it on the table saw, and that was a miserable disaster. But I did some test cuts on the bandsaw, and it actually works pretty good. So I just need to adjust this table. Fingers crossed I don't ruin this $25 piece of foam. That should work pretty good. But I'm gonna do the straight cuts with this fabric cutter. It's the least risky option, and it actually cuts pretty good.
I had no idea what I was doing, and this is the first time I have ever upholstered anything. I realized I wanted the foam to be twice as thick as I had originally planned, so I used adhesive spray to join them together, which proved to be a great idea. The bandsaw was the only tool that I had that I could safely cut the 60-degree angle, and it cut like butter. I didn't want the underside to be bulky, so I trimmed off any excess. I used the adhesive spray again to secure the fabric to the underside, and I don't show this on camera, but to prevent any fraying off the edges of the fabric, I coated all of the seams with Gorilla Super Glue. Came out real nice. While Millie gets used to her new hideout and napping pod, I will be working on a huge cat condo where this hexagon bed will be integrated. You will not want to miss that epic build, and when it is finished, I'll put the link in the bottom right hand corner of this screen, so click on it. And in the meantime, click on another great video I handpicked just for you in the top right hand corner. See ya!